Imagine a kingdom where a young prince, destined for the throne, discovers that true greatness is not about the power to rule, but the courage to serve. Journey with him as he leaves the palace and walks among his people, learning that the heart of a king lies not in crowns and titles, but in love and humility. As he stands before the throne, will he choose the path of honor or the call to serve? This is the story of the empty throne, a tale that reveals the unexpected cost and ultimate reward of true leadership. Stay with me and uncover the powerful lesson that transforms a prince into a king. The night was cool, and the stars hung high above the quiet camp where Jesus and his disciples rested. They had traveled long distances that day, speaking to crowds, healing the sick, and delivering words that left those who heard them in a state of awe and contemplation. The disciples now sat around a small fire, its flickering flames casting a warm glow on their faces. Yet despite their day's work, there was an unspoken question lingering in the air, a question that had begun to take shape in the hearts of Peter, James, and John. Jesus noticed the silent, contemplative expressions on their faces. He sensed their yearning to understand what greatness truly meant and what it would take to lead in the kingdom of heaven. The disciples had grown up in a world where power was tied to thrones, where kings ruled with authority, and where greatness was measured by how high one could rise above others. They wondered if following Jesus would one day bring them to such positions, if they would sit by his side on a throne of glory. Jesus, seeing their thoughts clearly, decided it was time to help them understand what true leadership entailed. With a gentle voice, he began, "Let me tell you a story." His voice carried warmth and wisdom, drawing his disciples closer, for they knew that when Jesus spoke in stories, there was a deeper truth to be found within them. Jesus began his story in a faraway kingdom, one of beauty and prosperity, ruled by a wise and compassionate king who was loved by all. This king had a son, a young prince who grew up surrounded by wealth, admiration, and the finest teachings. The prince looked up to his father, idolizing him and aspiring to one day take his place on the throne. In the prince's eyes, the throne was a symbol of honor and greatness, a place where he would be respected and revered. As he was trained by the kingdom's best mentors, he learned about diplomacy, warfare, and governance, all skills he believed would prepare him to rule with wisdom and strength. But as he grew older, a restlessness took root in his heart. The more he envisioned himself on the throne, the more he felt an ache of emptiness. His tutors spoke of ruling as an act of power and control, but something told him there was more to it than that. Yet he did not know what it was. He began to dream of the day he would sit upon the throne, hoping that perhaps then, the sense of incompleteness would vanish. The king, aware of his son's inner struggle, decided it was time to share a deeper truth with him, one that could only be understood through experience. One day the king called his son to the royal garden, a secluded place filled with blooming flowers and towering trees. The prince approached with a mixture of excitement and nervousness, sensing that this was no ordinary conversation. He hoped his father would share secrets of power, insights into the ways of ruling. The king, however, looked at him with a weary expression, an expression that revealed a wisdom tempered by years of bearing the burdens of leadership. "My son," he said, his voice heavy with both love and solemnity, "I see the desire in your heart to lead, to be great. But before you seek the throne, there is something you must understand." The prince listened, his anticipation growing. "Greatness does not lie in being served by others," the king continued. "It lies in serving others. The throne is not a place of honor, but a place of sacrifice. To sit there means to carry the weight of every life in this kingdom, to feel the joys and sorrows of the people as your own. True leadership is a life of service, not of self-glory." The prince was silent, his mind wrestling with his father's words. He had always thought of the throne as a place of admiration, but now he saw a different side, a side that spoke of selflessness, humility, and responsibility. In an effort to help his son understand these truths, the king decided to take him on a journey through the kingdom. They would travel incognito, without the trappings of royalty, so that the prince could see his people's lives without the filter of his title. The prince was intrigued and nervous, uncertain of what to expect. Dressed in simple clothes and leaving behind the palace's comforts, the prince and the king ventured into the villages and towns, mingling with farmers, merchants, and laborers who made up the heart of the kingdom. They stayed in humble homes, ate simple meals, and listened to stories of joy and hardship. The prince saw firsthand the resilience and dignity of the people, who lived not for power or prestige, but for love, family, and community. He watched as his father spoke with a farmer whose crops had failed, offering not only words of consolation but practical help. It was in these moments that the prince began to grasp the meaning of his father's words, that greatness was about more than ruling from a throne. It was about caring for those who depended on him. One evening, as they walked through a small village, the prince noticed a family sitting by the ruins of what had once been their home, destroyed by fire. The children clung to their mother, their faces marked by sorrow and fear. The prince's heart ached as he watched, feeling helpless in the face of such loss. His father, however, knelt beside the family, his voice filled with compassion as he comforted them. He held the children, whispering words of hope, assuring them that they were not alone. Moved by his father's kindness, the prince felt a surge of understanding. He realized that true greatness was found not in the admiration of others but in the ability to bring comfort to those who suffered. He stayed with the family, helping them find shelter for the night, and in that moment he felt a sense of purpose that surpassed anything he had ever felt. He saw the throne not as a place of power, but as a place from which he could extend love, compassion, and support to all who needed it. As the journey continued, the prince grew close to the people he met, feeling a kinship he had never experienced before. He no longer saw himself as separate from them but as one of them. He played with children, helped repair broken fences, and shared meals with families who welcomed him with open arms, unaware of his royal status. The people spoke to him as a friend, sharing their dreams and fears, and in their stories he found a new understanding of leadership. They told him of their hardships, their struggles, and their hopes for a better future. And in return he offered them his time, his compassion, and his support. He listened to them with an open heart, and in doing so he realized that leadership was not about commanding others but about understanding them, walking beside them, and carrying their burdens as if they were his own. Word began to spread throughout the kingdom of a young man who walked among the people, offering kindness and wisdom without asking for anything in return. Villagers shared tales of his humility, his willingness to help, and his deep compassion. The prince became known not as a future king but as a true friend of the people, one who understood their lives and cared for them deeply. His reputation grew not through displays of power but through acts of service and love. The king watched his son with pride, seeing the transformation that had taken place within him. He knew that the prince had come to understand the true meaning of greatness, that he had learned the lesson the king had hoped to impart. The kingdom itself felt different, united by the love and compassion that radiated from their future leader. The day finally came when the prince was to be crowned king. The palace was filled with people from every corner of the kingdom, all eager to witness the coronation. The prince, now a man who understood the true cost and value of leadership, stood before them with a heart full of humility and love. As he approached the throne, he felt not the thrill of power but the weight of responsibility. He thought of the lives that would be affected by his decisions, the burdens he would carry, and the sacrifices he would make. Before taking his place, he addressed the crowd, his voice steady and filled with conviction. "I do not need a throne to serve you," he declared. "My place is here, beside you, sharing in your lives, lifting you up when you are down, and celebrating with you in times of joy. I will lead, not with authority but with love." The crowd was silent, and then slowly they began to cheer, moved by the depth of his words. They saw in him a true leader, a man who was not above them but one of them. Under the prince's rule, the kingdom flourished in ways it never had before. His leadership brought unity, prosperity, and a sense of belonging to all who lived within its borders. He walked among the people, addressing their needs, sharing in their joys, and providing comfort in times of sorrow. His love and humility inspired his subjects to care for one another, creating a kingdom built on compassion rather than power. The prince was no longer just a ruler. He was a beacon of hope and kindness, a leader who had won the hearts of his people by giving his heart to them. The kingdom became a place where every person felt seen and valued, where greatness was measured not by status or wealth but by the love one showed to others. As Jesus finished the story, he looked around at his disciples, who sat in silence, their faces marked by emotion and understanding. They had been deeply moved by the tale of the prince, a tale that spoke to their own lives and their own journeys. Peter was the first to speak, his voice filled with awe. "Master," he said, "you are like the prince in your story. You walk among us, sharing in our lives, teaching us through love and compassion." Jesus smiled, his eyes filled with warmth. "I have come not to be served but to serve," he replied. The true path to greatness is not in seeking glory, but in giving of oneself to others. The disciples felt a sense of peace and purpose settle over them, a feeling that they had been given a gift of profound wisdom. They knew that their calling was not to seek positions of power, but to follow in the footsteps of the prince, to lead by loving, to serve without seeking reward. And as they sat beneath the stars, the disciples understood that they had witnessed a truth that would guide them for the rest of their lives. The story of the empty throne would remain in their hearts, a reminder that true greatness lies not in the throne but in the heart willing to serve. This is end of the story. Comment amen if you believe in Jesus' blessings. Please like this video and subscribe this channel for more Jesus story like this. May the God watch over you.